If you have a question you want to ask, let us know. If you have a topic, or if you would like to interview me on the podcast, please let me know. Our guest today is virtual because Kris lives in Florida, so you don't have to live in Atlanta to be our guest. And we do have an interesting guest today. His name is Kris. Kris, welcome to our podcast. And why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulling. My name is Kris Simon. I work in Tallahassee under a roofing contractor company. I work as an administrative assistant in the office, doing all the paperwork and making sure that everything in the office is A-OK before it goes out in the field. I also go to school at the local community college, Tallahassee, and hopefully getting my degree towards psychology and moving on towards the Army in my near future.
Well, we will have that in common because I was in the U.S. Army for 2.5 years, so my compliments to you for wanting to serve our country. So you have some questions you want to ask me, so fire away and see what I can come up with.
Absolutely. A few of my questions have a little to do with finding a career path. So far, I have a main goal far, far into the future where I want to become a psychologist and help study and help people with personal issues or anything that they might have going on psychologically. I'd also like to personally perform studies, but the biggest thing is I have not been able to create a good direct line to where I want to go. And I know that my long future has the big main goal of becoming a psychologist, possibly with a PhD. But it's the steps that getting there is going to be a little rough. And I was wondering what you might have to add to help me kind of guide down that path.
Kris, first of all, I want to compliment you on something. Most millennials have no idea what they want to do in a career. They're just in a job. They don't have a long-term goal. Congratulations on you wanting a long-term goal. I was going to ask you, do you want to do the master's or PhD? You've already answered that question. Everything you decide going forward should be to achieve that long-term goal. Do you want to be a therapist in practice for yourself?
Personally, I would like to perform research and study. I'm not more hands-on with people because I feel like people heal in their own personal ways, whereas I want to direct my research towards those who can't help themselves. There's certain people in the military, even with post-traumatic stress disorders.
Absolutely, and afterwards. I do volunteer work here in Atlanta helping veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. That is a huge need. First of all, now that you know what you want, not to practice psychology and be a therapist in practice for yourself, but to do research. You need to, of course, you need an undergraduate degree in psychology. That's a given. I would encourage you to, after you get your 4-year degree, if you have the grades to do so, you look pretty smart to me, but I would encourage you to go get a master's degree in psychology. And let me tell you why I'm saying that. The military looks at young men and women with certain educations. They like master's degree people. More than likely, no guarantee, but you need to talk to the Army recruiter about this and tell them you would like to do psychological research or something like that because I have a master's in psychology. And where do you want to go? Which 4-year college do you want to go to?
Currently in Tallahassee, I have no plans to go to FSU personally, but any 4-year college I'm kind of game for as long as they have a proper program to push me.
Well, now, what you just said is very important. I would encourage you right now to start searching out the good schools in psychology. There are name brand schools in psychology, and there are some that it is a stepchild. No reflection on the college, that is just not one of their emphasis. So I would encourage you to get that 4-year degree, and if you want to get a master's and then go into the military, you can get a lot of good experience in the military by working in the field that you want. You don't have to be in infantry or armor or supply chain, whatever it is. If you're going to volunteer, sometimes you can designate. What I did when I was going into the Army, I graduated from college. It was the very end of the Vietnam War, so I didn't have a choice. I was going to be drafted. I volunteered and signed up, and I was fortunate enough to pass the exam to be in military intelligence. I knew going in, after basic other training, that I was going to be in military intelligence. That's what I wanted to do at the time. I thought I wanted to be an FBI agent. I decided later I didn't want to do that. So you need to pursue that goal, do everything you can. Now, you told me just now that you thought that you would enter the Army after the 2 years of schooling. I would encourage you to go ahead and go to school unless you want to use the GI Bill. And I understand that because that is a very good financial help. You would not have any debt coming out of it because the GI education bill is a good one. They pay for tuition and other things. So now that I've said what I've said, give me some feedback on that. Did I change your mind, or are you set on going into the military before you pursue your master's degree?
My idea was to go into the military beforehand. As you mentioned, the GI Bill was something that I was interested in.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I haven't had the most luck. There's been a lot of family issues, a lot of distant issues that have hindered my capability to pay for my own schooling. Whereas if I was able to utilize this GI Bill, I could not only push forward in the military, I can push forward in my education and go for the exact thing that I really want out of this.
And Kris, I don't critique that. It's a reality. There are a lot of millennials listening to our program today who have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in education debt, and that's heavy, and they spend a lot of years paying that off. If you need to go into the military to get and benefit from the GI Bill, by all means do it, but please don't lose sight of your long-term goal.
Absolutely not. It's been something that I've been dreaming of for a long time coming now.
Well, let me ask you a loaded question. Why do you want a profession, particularly in psychological research? Why do you want that profession?
In psychology, when I first began out in high school, I ended up doing dual enrollment, and I thought the main goal I wanted to do was arts and IT. I was very good with computers, and as well as I can draw well. But after some time, I realized that neither of those were the thing that I wanted to do, and I had to spitball. I had to figure out something at this point. I mean, I'm still in high school. I have all the time in the world, essentially, at that point.
You're still in high school?
Well, not at the moment. It was during this time that I was...
That back then, yeah.
Yes, sir. So while I was doing that, I was spitballing, trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. And I recall an old high school class that I had, psychology. It was an honors course class, one of the very few that I had during the time. But the teacher really spoke to me. The coursework was just so interesting and intriguing, and I just felt like it was something that beyond physical, something about it tied to me. So I was very alleviated when I realized after taking a college course class for psychology that it was something I really wanted to do. I wanted to study people. I wanted to help people in a way that not most people can help themselves. And the best way is, the big device up here.
That's right. Well, let me make another suggestion. You talked about long-term, how do you pursue it? We call it informational gathering interviews. We've mentioned this on the podcast before. An informational gathering interview is just that. You go talk to someone in the profession in which you want to be in. If you want to be a psychologist, PhD, you need to go talk to, in your case, research psychologists. You ask them what's the best career path, how to enter the profession, what is the income level, what do they see in this profession 10, 15, 20 years from now. I have a feeling the study and research of psychology will be around, but you need to ask people in that profession. Do informational gathering interviews, get your military experience behind you so the GI Bill can pay for it, but also talk to the Army recruiter about your long-term goal and see if the Army has something for you. It may be a no with you not having a degree or a master's degree in psychology, but that's okay. You're going to benefit long-term getting out of college not having a burden of having loans, student loans, and there are a lot of young people in our audience who certainly appreciate what I'm saying. What is your next question?
My next question is bringing it back to kind of my current situation. I work for a roofing company that's family owned. There's 3 owners. It is the mother, the father, and the son, who all of which are going through, familial issues in their life. Happens to the best of us. But when dealing with something like that, because I do like the field that I'm in, I'm assisting people where they need to be assisted, but handling a whole family feud, essentially, between your owners is quite a mountain to climb over. And I can't really personally think of a way to not avoid the issue, but kind of climb this mountain, try to see if there's a grass on the green grass on the other side.
You're asking a very common question that should be asked in family-owned businesses. And I used to have a nationally syndicated column, and I have radio shows on this. The best advice I can give you about working for a family-owned business, and particularly when there are family feuds going on, and some families have more feuds than others, stay out of it. Blood is thicker than water. The family members may fight, but they're going to stick up for each other in the long term unless there is a complete estrangement and they're not speaking to each other. Somebody wants to leave the family business. I have a very good friend in Atlanta. He could not work for his brother, who was the president of this very large family-owned business. He had to leave. But you're not a part of the family. Do not talk to a family member about it because they could exaggerate it. They could lie to another family member, and around the dinner table when they're having a family dinner at holiday or weekends or whatever, you're not there. Be very careful what you're saying. Be very politically correct and protect yourself. If you take sides with one family member, it could be the wrong one. And the wrong one is not always the junior person. Sometimes the junior person has more power or persuasion in the family than the more senior person. Be careful. You have a job. You're making money. Stay out of it.
Absolutely. And I do take those words to heart. I've been staying neutral as far as I've been working for them.
How long have you worked for them?
It's been about 2 years now.
Right. Does anybody ever come to you and a family member and ask you your opinion on something, trying to bait you to say stuff?
Absolutely.
I knew the answer was going to be yes. Be careful. You're a smart young man. And the good thing I like about this, you are learning right now how to conduct yourself and deal with politics in the workplace. Politics are always there. Anywhere there are two or more people, and particularly if one is trying to get promoted above the others, it's called politics.
I've definitely taken that into account, and I'm glad I've stayed in my neutral position because that's probably what's kept my job this long.
You're smart. I'm impressed. How old are you?
I'm 24 now, going on 25 this November.
You're a very mature 24-year-old. If you have walked through these roadblocks and around the fences in a family-owned business where there are feuds going on. So what is your next question?
My next question is, with working in contracting, there's a difference between your IRS tax forms. Now you have the W-2, which is your normal salary, and then you have a 1099, which is a commission-based salary. A lot of the time, my higher-ups will ask me to do certain things regarding their contracts and a lot of the like, and I was wondering if I were to keep my hourly salary, of course, as well as move on to my 1099 to start doing commission-based work, what is the best way to balance that kind of situation?
Okay, right now, are you an employee or are you a contract employee?
I am an employee.
Are you a full-time employee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why would you want to become a 1099? What advantages do you think there are?
Well, it's not personally that I would like to become a 1099 employee. It's more so the jobs that I perform kind of teeter on the line of being contractual work. And my higher ups are pushing me closer and closer towards that, towards that contractual work, to where it might be somewhere in my near future to look towards a 1099 form.
Okay, there's some very important considerations. When you're a 1099, you don't have any benefits, and you have to pay 50% of your Social Security tax. So there are expenses that you don't have right now. And it is a pretty common practice that if you are a 1099, you're probably going to be making 25, 35% more than you would make as a permanent employee with that company. Make sure you take that into consideration.
Yes, sir.
Now, what's going to be the challenge, if they want to pay you for the same thing, the same rate of pay, and make you a 1099, and they don't have to give you benefits and all that. They're trying to save money. That's exactly what they're trying to do. And you're going to take a pay cut if you allow that to happen.
Okay.
Now, the question becomes, if they really make you do that with no increase in your hourly rate, are you willing to leave that company and go find another job? You need to answer this question now before this topic comes up.
Yeah, I would probably end up leaving the company. In that case, for any further cases, I would probably be watchful for anybody trying to push me into a 1099 from a constant salary.
Now, what do you do at your company? You are an administrative assistant, you said?
Yes, sir. I work the office. I'm one of two people who work in our office. It is a very small business, but we do handle a lot of big work. Plenty of people definitely need roofs, and we're here to definitely replace them for you.
Now, do you work in the office on a regular schedule? They set your schedule?
Yes, sir, from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m.
It is going to be difficult. I don't know all the details, but there are certain checkoffs that the employer needs to do before they make you a 1099. There are government regulations on this, and they're pretty strict. So I'm hearing that I don't think you would be able to qualify to be a 1099. You need to check that out and bring that up to them. I'm going to make a recommendation that is risky, so I've never met your employers, the family members. I would encourage you, if you agree with this, to right now, before they really force the issue, to go ask your employer, the most appropriate one, is it the president, your immediate supervisor, whatever, what is going on without saying that, and ask them, are they planning to make you a 1099? And what would that entail? Knowledge is power. When you ask that question, shut up and listen. Find out what they want you to be. And then you can make a decision if you want to do that or not. You could also ask, would I get an increase in my hourly rate? Are you work on the hour now? Or are you a salaried? You work by the hour?
Excuse me, on the hour, yes, sir.
Right. You need to bring up the subject that you think that you may not qualify to do this. They may not even know that. They may just be totally ignorant on the qualifications, because having a contractor roofing a building is very different than having an office employee like you being a contractor. So don't say there's no way that you're going to make me a contract employee. I know you're more politically correct than that, but ask now before they're forcing the issue. Knowledge is power. I want you to find out what they're thinking, what their time frame is, why they want you to become a contract employee, and also what they're thinking about paying you.
Okay, absolutely.
All right, now let me ask you the follow-up question. I've never met any of the family members. Do you think it would be a good or a bad idea to nicely, professionally, not demanding anything, ask them these questions?
Absolutely. I would say I have a good interpersonal relationship with the three of them, and that if there was any questions, concerns, or qualms that I may have had, I can definitely bring it up to them.
Well, there are two considerations here. Go to the person that you have the best relationship with, but also the decision maker. Who's going to make this decision? Those may not be the same person, but talk to the decision maker. I don't want another family member going and representing you to the decision maker, because they need to hear that from you.
Right, I completely agree with that.
Do you have another question?
My biggest worry is due to the circumstances of their possible feud, that they could be inevitably running the company into the ground. How, as an employee, should I handle? Should I just let it go, let them run the company as they will, or try to speak up and bring my ideas forth to the plate and try to inspire them to keep the company up and running?
Have you ever given advice like that to the company to increase the sales, the productivity, or anything like that?
Right.
Have you ever done that?
Personally, I have not brought any ideas for the fear of, I guess, stepping on too many toes would be the correct terminology.
Well, there's some family members I know that own a family business. I own a family business. I don't have any family members working in my firm right now. I had a daughter in the past. I wanted her to go get corporate experience, and she's doing real well. That was needed for her benefit, not mine, because I would have loved to have had her there. But you need to just understand and try to forecast what the answer is, because you can think it's going to go well and it may not. If the conversation is falling apart, and bosses can do that, they don't like it, they are threatened, they want to get same amount of work out of you with less pay, all that we've talked about. But try to talk to the decision maker, get a decision, and then you'll know what you need to do. How much longer do you have to go, time-wise? Do you have to go to school before you're going to enter the military? How many months or whatever?
Should be halfway through next year is when I'll start training. Personally, not with the military, to make sure that my body is in the proper shape, as well as my health, to go ahead and begin the process of joining the military.
Now, is this 6 or 9 or 12 months from that you would work at your current employer?
Could be anywhere between 12 months to 2 years.
Okay, that's enough time that if you're not satisfied to go find another job. So if you find out information that you don't like, look for a job while you are employed, because based on the current pandemic situation, don't ever believe that people are not hiring. They are hiring. And it's important that you know that. And if it's, 9 months, 2 years, that's enough time that you would need to go find another job rather than be that unhappy.
Absolutely.
What is your biggest challenge in your job right now?
Personally, juggling the three bosses, essentially, the mother, the father, and the son, trying to please all three of them while not disappointing any one of the other.
Do they make different requests for the same responsibility sometimes and contradict each other?
Absolutely. A lot of the times the father, he's the one who's the most ambitious in my eyes. I feel like there's a lot that he says that kind of goes unnoticed.
Okay, let me give you some advice. If one family member asks you to do A about a situation, and another family member asks you to do B, don't get caught in the middle. You're not the decision maker and you'll lose. Tell both of them very politely you're getting different instructions for the same job, and that would they please talk and decide on what they want to do. That we've already talked earlier in the podcast, that you don't like to get in the middle. That is a perfect way of not getting into the middle. Tell them you'll do anything that they want you to do. Just give you some instructions with one game plan.
Absolutely. And I'll take that into consideration anytime that it comes up.
Good. Kris, thank you for being a guest today. You've been really wonderful, asking questions that a lot of millennials want answers to. And thank you, viewers, for joining us on our podcast. Let us know if you have any questions. We will see you next week. Thank you.